Okay, so, first of all, y'all sound great tonight. Y'all sound good. I am so excited for tonight. I get to introduce you to one of my good friends. This is Andrew. You want to say, what's up, Andrew? Yeah, that wasn't the most excited reaction, but that's okay. You don't know him yet. That's fine. That's okay. Andrew, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but sometimes it's hard for pastors to have friends. Not like that. It's just like no one wants to be a friend with the pastor. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, he's going to judge me for something. You know what I'm saying? So we find other pastors to be friends with so we can judge each other and not feel judged. You know what I'm saying? So Andrew is one of the pastors at Discovery. You guys know Discovery? You got a couple.
Nice.
You got a couple. Yeah. So he said, dude, I'd love to share what God's got in my heart. And I said, hey, will you please preach for me? And he said, yeah, God gave me something. So he's here tonight. But I figure, we like to get to know our speakers just a little bit. So I figure we'd just be able to ask him a couple questions. Before you guys ask, hold on a second. I got a couple. Andrew, where are you from?
I am from Colorado Springs. I grew up here.
What's up?
Home. Actually, fun fact, I should say, I moved here when I was 2, so this is home. I was born in England. No joke.
Wow.
And before you ask why I didn't have an accent, I was 2 when I left.
Yeah, I couldn't talk. Couldn't talk. Okay, interesting. What middle school you go to?
I went to Evangelical Christian Academy.
I knew it. What the hell? He was like, there's something about you, man. There's something about you.
Am I that, like, do I look like a snob?
Okay. What high school did you go to?
Same high school.
Oh, it's a dual.
Tiny school, yeah.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
Wasn't,
okay. Anyone else? Any ECA? Is that what it's called? Hey, hold on. We're not asking questions yet. Andrew, how old were you when you gave your life to Jesus?
Okay. It's a story, but I'll make it quick.
Okay.
I said the prayer at 5, but it wasn't until college until I was like, all right, God, I'm actually doing this thing.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to college?
Greenville.
What state is Greenville in?
Illinois.
Let's go! Yeah.
It doesn't mean I root for Illinois sports teams.
Oh, well, you're better off. Okay. Yeah, they stink. They're not good.
Roll Tide.
They're not good.
Right.
So, okay, what do you guys got? Let me get some questions. Okay, we got what's your favorite color?
It depends on the day and my mood. They're all great. They all serve a purpose.
They all serve a purpose. I like that. Okay, let's go right here. Ooh, DC or Marvel?
Oh my gosh.
A lot of pressure here. A lot of pressure.
Right. I have my answer based on my whole life, and I love, one of my favorite video games is Injustice, so DC. But the movies are way, DC is terrible in the cinematic universe.
Okay.
So I can admit
Fair
that.
Fair enough. Okay, I know what 4 of these questions are. So let's no, you got a horse question, so we're not going to do that one.
Horses are cool.
I know what your question is. Let's go here. What? I knew it was coming. Okay, unforeseen or sloppy wet? I thought I picked someone who wasn't going to ask that question, but okay.
All right.
What do you got?
I've got a couple thoughts behind this.
Oh, there's an explanation.
I mean,
that means he's embarrassed.
If that's what you're into, I got some questions, but if that's your thing. Okay. I don't have a problem with sloppy wet, but that sounds disgusting. Especially... Yes. So you grow out a beard, you think about everything through the beard, and food gets in my beard, so you're thinking a sloppy wet kiss with a beard, and it's...
Yeah.
And unforeseen's kind of weird too, though, because that could be creepy too.
Well, yes.
For the lack of a better term.
All the non-church kids are like, what just happened? What are we talking about? Sloppy wet? Thought this was church. So,
disgusting.
What do you got? We'll do 2 more. What do you got? Ooh, one piece of advice. Well,
I'm about to give it to you in a span of 30 minutes.
Okay, we'll save it. Okay, one more.
10 minutes.
One more. Let's go to the back of the room. Yeah, what do you got? Yeah.
Oh, is that a question? Batman, obviously.
Yeah! Let's go. Okay.
I mean, I didn't know that was a real question.
Yeah, it's not. Superman sucks.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm just throwing it out there. So, he's a cheater. He's a cheater. So, okay. If you have more questions, I know you do. Andrew will be here for a little bit longer. You can ask him any question. His theology on the Trinity. Ask him to explain that. His theology on transubstantiation. Okay, whatever you got.
Yep.
Ask him. He'll let you know. He'll be hanging out for a little bit. This is a privilege. Andrew's become a good friend, and I trust him with my life. So,
Don't make it weird.
Although he is an Alabama fan.
Roll Tide. Yeah, Roll Tide.
So, no, he just...
He's just dancing?
No, he's a fan of every team that wins. He's also a
that's fair.
Patriots fan, so you have that
Gross.
on your side. So,
Go back behind your curtain.
yeah, go back. Okay, so what I'm going to have you guys do, we do this with all of our guest speakers. If you just want to extend your hands, we're going to pray over Andrew, and then we're going to get started tonight. So, God, we thank you for the opportunity to worship you, to praise you. We thank you for the opportunity to open your book and the stuff that you have given us to know you better, but also to walk through this life with more joy and more happiness and to be fulfilled and satisfied. I thank you for Andrew. I pray for the words that you've put on his heart, and I pray that you will be able to speak through him, and we can get something good tonight. So, God, it's in your name we pray. And everyone said?
Amen. Awesome, man. You guys got some good questions. At our Discovery, the go-to question is crumple or fold. And do you guys know what I mean by that? Toilet paper. Like, it's disgusting. So I appreciated your guys' questions a lot. So now that you know me, I have a question for you. Any guesses on how many decisions the average person makes in a day? Too many. I agree. 17. Oh, sorry, yeah. Over 1,000. 300. 3,000. And what was that? 100%. Not a percentile. What the heck? How many? 75? All right. Hey, well, lucky for you guys, you weren't even close, okay? The average number of decisions that a human being makes in one day is 35,000. 35,000. Now, think about every little thing that could be considered a decision. I am now deciding to walk left. I didn't really think about it, but I just decided to. You just decided to put your arm around her. You decided to look, right? You decided to, was that a dab or did you sneeze? Don't ever decide to dab, all right? It's done, it's over. Like, let's move past that, please, for the betterment of our country. So I'd like to talk to you about some of the decisions that I have made in my life. Not necessarily small decisions, but decisions that either have or could have changed my life drastically. So when I was in college, one of the best decisions and most fun decisions, we would go trestle jumping. Here's what exactly I'm about to explain that. She says, what's that? You're going to find out. Trestle jumping, we'd have to go in 2 a.m. because it was technically trespassing and illegal. Don't judge me for that. I'm a pastor now. It's okay. And so we'd walk down these railroad tracks for about a mile at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then the trestle was this bridge over a lake that was wide enough for a train and no one and nothing else. And so we'd go to the top, and it's about a 40-foot jump into the lake. And we would do that. The scariest part about it was that you couldn't see anything because it was, 2 a.m. So as you jumped, you didn't know when you were going to hit the water. And I chose to do this consciously. It's weird. But you would jump, you'd be like, when do you poof, and you like breathe in a ton of water and fish and stuff. I don't even know what I breathed in. But that was a decision I made. And then I told my mom, and she had a minor heart attack. I had to pay for that doctor bill. I also made a decision. Some of you are going to like this. I made the decision to be Batman. And I wish I would have brought in a picture. When I was in college, I went to this antique store, and they had on sale the Dark Knight outfit for $40. I mean, it was like I walked in, and it was hanging from the ceiling, and there was like lights. I was like, ah! And I was like, And I was like, how much? She's like, $40. I was like, take my money, right? And so, I mean, even if you don't like Batman, you buy it for $40. That's the best deal I've ever seen in my life. So I bought it. And my dorm room, if you went right out the window, it went straight into another roof. So I threw on the Batman suit and I just stood on the roof. And people, they're like, Batman's so short. What the heck? I thought he was taller. Okay, so I stood on the roof and like people would get around. They're like, oh my gosh, Batman's so cool. And then like ran off and flung my cape as I ran away. And no one ever found out it was me. Until today. This is awkward. The last great decision I made, I went skydiving, which was amazing. Before and after I jumped, it was amazing. The in-between part was absolutely terrifying. That was crazy. It was awesome. And then I've made awesome, fun, crazy decisions like that in my life. And then I've made some dumb decisions. Some of you could probably relate. One of them, I don't know why I thought of this one, but I just thought I'd tell you guys. I was jumping on the trampoline with my brother like we were younger, and he looked at me in the eyes, eye contact, and he said, do not rocket me. So I looked at him in the eyes, and I thought, I'm going to rocket you, like every good older brother does. So I rocketed him, but instead of rocketing, he broke his leg. So I still hear about that one. It was like 10 years ago. Just being a good older brother. We build character, right? In our younger siblings. Can I hear it from the older brothers? Yeah, that's what we do. All right, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So there's that fun stuff. There are these pieces of my life that I look back on, and very few of these decisions and that really stick out to me, and they're really fun. But then I also look back on my life, and then I see moments that I hate thinking about. I remember walking into my mom's bedroom, and she was on her knees weeping because of decisions that I had made. I started sneaking out of my house. I started drinking. This was in high school. I started drinking. I started becoming really distant from my parents and any form of authority in my life. I hated the church. I hated as anything that I could that was trying to push me to be a better person. And I didn't trust anybody at this point in my life, and I pushed people away. I used people when I was in high school. I needed people to affirm me and like me. That was just a desire inside that I craved and I was addicted to. And so I would do anything to be accepted by people. And those are a part of my decisions. And there's a lot of high school I could tell you guys about, and you're going to get to know a lot more about me tonight. But before we get there, when I look at my life, I want to ask you the same question I ask myself. Every day, of those 35,000, more or less, decisions that I make, how many of them involve God? 35,000 decisions. How many involve God? And I totally understand. I want to throw this out. If you're here and you don't believe in God, that's totally okay. I want you to feel safe here. I want you to feel loved here, that this is still for you. And even if you want nothing to do with God tonight, I'm glad that you guys are here. This is awesome. And you guys are incredible. Evan's pretty cool. No, he's incredible. He has really good style. It's weird, but it inspires me. It's more discouraging because I can't do it, but it's cool. But then I also asked the question, right? How many of those 35,000 decisions involve God? I also asked the question, after the decisions that I've already made in my life, and quite frankly, the mistakes I've made, is there room for God in my decisions? Is there room for God for somebody like me? Man, I'd like to say that that's, past tense. I used to wrestle with this, but I still wrestle with that today. And I'm physically talking today. Man, how am I having the privilege to go speak to this awesome youth group? God, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve all this love that you're giving me, this opportunity that you're giving me. And so my question is, God, is there even room for you in a messed up story like mine? And some of you might feel like that too. So we're going to be hanging out in Ephesians chapter 4, and we're looking at Paul. We're looking at this letter that Paul wrote to this church in Ephesus. And he talks about this life, right? He talks about this older life and this newer life and living in the balance of those things. And we're going to start in verse 17. And let me just read it real quick before I try to explain it and just mess everything up. So starting in verse 17, Paul says, "Now this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, due to their hardness of heart. They have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity." I want to pause there real quick, and then I'll read the rest. But I want to pause there and say, raise my hand and say, me too, of this first part, okay? This is where I've been in my life. This is what I've experienced. Greed, a hardened heart, living calloused. In verse 20, though, he says, "But that is not the way that you have learned in Christ. Assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him, as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness." So, Paul here gives us two of maybe the most important decisions we could make in our life. Two things: put off, put on. Wax on, wax off. That wasn't even in my notes, so sorry. So put on, I'm going to think about that every time I say this now. Put off and put on, right? And you're going to think of it too, and it's going to be a mess. Put off, put on. So let's start with put off. And I'm pretty passionate about this. There's been some things in my life I have to put off, and you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna get to know a lot about me in this. But the first thing I want to identify, and I know you've been in school all week, so I'm not gonna teach it too much, but to put off, or put, what kind of word is that? It's a verb. Nice. There's your school English lesson for tonight. You're dismissed. Just kidding. It's like quickest message ever, because I know how long Evan talks, and I do too. It's okay. It's a pastor thing, and we can see, bud. I love you, man. I don't know why I'm roasting him right now. He invited me to come in, and I'm gonna have to invite him in, and he can do the same. Anyway, he'll just make fun of me for being short, man. It's okay. I'll get into that. Don't worry. So, yeah. Wow. Wow. That's me. I'm short and I don't have a voice now, man. Come on. Rubbing it in. I love you, man. All right, so anyway, put off. It's a verb. We just talked about that, okay? I was seriously I was like, my mic's not working, guys. Come on. All right, it's a verb. So what does a verb do? It's a call for action, right? So a verb is an action. It's something that we have to do. It's something we have to either physically do, mentally do, spiritually do, but it's something that we have to initiate and something that we have to do. So, what do we have to do? We have to put off. Okay, but what? Now, this is where it caught me reading this passage. See, every single person in here has such a unique and beautiful story. Every single person is entirely different. And so the thing that you come to grips with today that you need to put off is going to look different for each of you, but I'm going to walk into my story and tell you what it's looked like for me in hopes that you will find what it looks like for you. Now, as I talk about what to put off, I want to start by saying what not to put off. We can get this really confused in this passage, okay? When I read it, it was like, I felt like I did when I was growing up in church. I grew up in this church where you had to wear a suit and a tie every single Sunday you showed up. You had to look pristine. You had to behave. You had to be a good boy and a good girl and act the right way. See, this passage isn't about behavior control. And that's a lot of times we can confuse the Bible for that this is just behavior control. It's not about the symptoms of the sicknesses that we are experiencing. It's about curing whatever is going on in the core of you right now that is causing those symptoms. And let me explain that. I mean, if you guys have a cold, all right, it's kind of that season, or maybe you guys had flus this year. Who caught the flu this year? I'm sorry, I didn't, but sucks for you guys. But yeah, my wife had the flu. It was horrible. And there was a lot of symptoms when she was sick, right? You have a cold and your nose is running, you're coughing, all this stuff. You've got these symptoms that you're experiencing. What is the goal when you're experiencing these symptoms? Is it just to deal with the symptoms for the rest of your life? You're like, well, I'm a runny nose person the rest of my life. I'm going to have to live with this. The goal is to get rid of what? The cold, right? To get rid of the core of what's going on so that the symptoms also go away. See, you are not your addiction. You are not your bad behavior. You are not alcoholism. You are not the drugs. You are not giving into peer pressure. But whatever is happening inside is where we want to kill that, right? We want to cure whatever is inside. And I want to... I want to step into my story. Let me, man, I'm like all over the place mentally right now, man. You guys are awesome, but there's just so much that Jesus wants to say tonight. But when I was in high school, I played football, basketball, and track. And this is where my wound comes in. Yeah, track, woo. You're like, basketball, you're like 5'8". I'm 5'9" on a good day, right? With heels on, I'm 5'10", though. Yeah, that's, yeah, anyway. So I remember playing basketball, and I think it was my sophomore or junior year. And my goal, man, was always to be the hardest worker, to work harder than everybody else around me, to be the best. And it falls back into that need for affirmation that I always felt inside of me. And there was one day, my coach, he yells out, he says, Perkett, that's my last name. That's what everyone called me. Perkett, great job, man. Great job. And I'm just like, yeah, thanks, coach, kind of strutting my stuff. And then he follows it with a phrase that has changed the rest of my life. He said, if only you were 6 inches taller. Bam, right? I was just like, yeah. Oh, dang, right? And I did this. I laughed it off, okay? I was like, yeah, coach, that would be sweet if I had any control over that, right? So I was even more mad at my mom and dad at that point. But then it started to sink in. And then I started to think, man, if only I was 6 inches taller, then what? And you know what? I hid it. And I kept it just deep down inside of me. And it started to control my life. You know what it started to do? It started to become an excuse for me. See, whenever I would fail or whenever I would mess up or whenever, any of this stuff happened, I said, well, basically if only I wasn't me, then I'd be good enough. But I'm created this way. And you know what? God screwed up when he made me, and that's not my fault, so whatever. And you know what? This came to a head in my life about 2 years ago when I met my wife. And we before we started dating, she was like, I really like you. She said it first, and it was pretty cool. And I was like, we should probably stay friends. And the reason I said that is because she's 3 inches taller than I am. She's still 3 inches taller than I am. Yeah, she didn't shrink at all. You know what went through my mind when she said, I like you? If only I was 6 inches taller, then you could love me. Then I would be what you deserve. And I didn't realize the grasp that had on my life until that point. There was a woman who loved me, she still does, who loves me, who loves me, and I wanted to protect her by not being in a relationship with her because I was saying, you know what? If only I was taller, I'd be good enough for you, but I'm not. So, sorry, I can't be with you. Now, obviously, it worked out, which was great. But what I had to do, I had to put off something. I had to put off the thing that was inside of me that was wanting to destroy me and everybody else around me. I wanted to take that thing. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. It was the most scary thing to take this thing that really, honestly, actually made me really comfortable. If I'm being honest with you guys, I just touched on it earlier. It made me comfortable because whenever I failed, I had a safety net. I had something to fall back on and make myself feel good about failing or making a mistake. And I had, hey, I'm not all I'm cracked up to be, everything that you think I am. And the reason it's so scary to do this is because when we give up the lies that we believe in our life, we also give up the excuses to not be the best version of ourselves that God made us to be. What I did that day, I gave up all the excuses that kept me living mediocre, that allowed me to slip up every once in a while, that justified my bad behavior, that justified my symptoms. And I never experienced freedom until I went to the core and put off the thing that was justifying and giving excuse after excuse after excuse in my life. So my question in putting off is, what is the lie that you are believing? What is the lie that you believe about yourself? And if it hurts to think of it, that's probably the lie that you're believing about yourself. Because it's like this companion that you don't really want there, but you also don't want it to leave. It's this bad sidekick. It's this tumor. It's this, these are all the ways I've viewed it. But I was like, it's a part of me. But the thing is, the bigger piece of you is freedom, is the right to have freedom in Jesus. And that thing is not you. It is not your identity. See, once we put that off, then we have a choice, right? We can put that off and we can feel empty. See, right after college, I ended a relationship I was in for 3 years. And then I had a job lined up, so I was like, oh, this will be all right. And then that job fell through. So I came back to the Springs, lived in my parents' basement, and worked at the Antlers Hotel for minimum wage. All my friends were still in Illinois. It was the loneliest season of my life. It was the most depressing season of my life. And it was also the season I learned the most about who God is to me. Because in that season, excuses didn't matter. Life was what it was. And you see, A.W. Tozer, he's this dead guy who wrote a lot of cool things, but I like the things he wrote, and so I read about him. I read him a lot. And he said this. He said, the way to deeper knowledge of God is through the lonely valleys of soul poverty and the abnegation of everything. Abnegation means the lack of, or everything is out, everything is away, the negating everything. That literally, when there's nothing in your life except for you and God, that is the way to deeper knowledge of God. And it was in that season I learned the most about who God was and who God has made me to be. And it was in that season that God said, yes, you are not called to be in the NBA. I did not create you to be in the NBA, clearly, but I did create you to take your story to people and to reveal the freedom that I have offered you and offer it to everyone around you. And to me, this is far more rewarding than playing in the NBA or NFL, I must say. So then I had a choice, okay? I felt empty. I didn't like myself. This is kind of nice. You just kind of, sorry. So I felt empty. I didn't like myself. And there's a choice at that point. We put off this thing that has so long just controlled us. It's become a part of our identity. But then Paul says this. He says, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and put on the new self created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Put on the new self, hear this, created after the likeness of God. Holy cow, man. In true righteousness and holiness. Here's what he says a couple books later. In Colossians chapter 3, he says, put on then, as God's chosen ones, you are God's chosen ones, put on, holy and beloved, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another. If one has a complaint against another, forgiving one another. As the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Okay, that sounds good to me. Sounds a lot better than if only. Because it's here now. See, what he's saying to do, he's saying put on. So again, we have a verb, right? So there's a piece of this that isn't just sitting back and just saying like, all right, maybe someday God will just throw like love and stuff on me, but until then, I'm playing Fortnite and eating Doritos. Okay, no one plays Fortnite anymore, right? Oh, thank goodness, man. All right, well, we'll pray for you. All right. You know, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to play Fortnite, I'm going to do whatever, and then maybe God will just intersect, right? Maybe I'll just bump into God sometime, and it'll be great. It's like when you're going out, you're at the grocery store, and you just like see someone you know randomly. You're like, oh, hey, Karen. And she's like, hey, what are the chances? It's this big city. You're like, yeah, okay, bye. Right? So we expect to have that kind of interaction with God, where we just bump in and God all of a sudden takes care of everything. And it's like, oh, cool. But the beautiful part of this is that Paul says we have to physically put on what God has for us. Because the things that we put on are a reflection of who we are. Man, the thing is, like, Jesus is so ready for you. Jesus so badly wants you, and he wants you to want him. You see, there's a story in the Bible where Jesus is on the Sea of Galilee with his disciples. This storm comes up, and it's going crazy, right? They're going to sink. They're throwing everything out of the ship, and they're for sure like, we're going to die. And then they go down to the bottom of the ship, and Jesus is sleeping. And they're just like, what? Like, Jesus, what are you doing, man? Like, you're sitting there, and we're up here about to die. Now, I'm not going to talk about the rest of the story because, well, actually, I guess I will. But Jesus, basically, he fixes it at that point. He goes up, he says, shut up, storm. The storm shuts up, and he goes back to sleep probably. And so here's the craziest thing about that story to me. It's not that Jesus calmed the storm. It's not anything else. Jesus didn't do anything until they came and sought him. Jesus never forces himself on somebody, but he waits patiently for you to come to him. Because he is not a tyrant. He's not a dictator. He's not going to force himself. But he's going to graciously and patiently and lovingly wait until you are ready. And he's going to stand against whatever it is that is dictating your identity right now. He's going to say, peace, be still. And you know what he's going to say to the things that are hurting you is that you are not allowed to hurt the ones that I love. See, that's the way that Jesus fights for his chosen ones. Like it said in that passage, his chosen ones. So he fights for you. So what do you put on? When you put on these things, right? You put on protection from the Almighty God. You put on love from the Almighty God. You put on mercy. You put on kindness. I mean, what is it that you need from God right now? And you know, when we start to put these things on, we start to put these things on us, I'll bet you those 35,000 decisions every day start to look a little different. See, 10,000 of those maybe are made out of love. Maybe another 5,000 are made out of forgiveness, and another 10,000 are made out of kindness. Don't do math because I'm not counting, okay? Trying to reach 35,000. But our life drastically looks different when we put on what God has for us and who he has called you to be. See, he has called you to be free. He's called you to be joyful and to be loving and to experience love. That is the God that I serve. And see, Evan told me about this conference you guys have coming up, and it sounds awesome, man. Like, this is, I'm a little jealous, but not jealous enough to go. Only because I have my own trips, and I don't want to go on that many trips, okay? But it seriously sounds incredible, man. I mean, this is, I really am jealous of you guys. Like, this is going to be incredible. But I want to give you some encouragement. Go seeking to experience God. Spend this week, all the way up until you leave, what is it that you need to put off? Because I can guarantee you, if you're seeking God, He's going to show you exactly what to put on next week. It's going to overwhelm you. It's going to be amazing. And Tozer, the dead guy, he has this other quote. Thank you in the back. He has this other quote, okay? He says this. First of all, we should put away all defense and make no attempt to excuse ourselves, either in our own eyes or before the Lord. Let me break that down really quick, okay? I told you guys about my story and the excuse that my lies and my insecurities were. Okay, so first of all, we should put away all defense and make no attempt to excuse ourselves, either in our own eyes or before the Lord. Because whoever defends himself will have himself for his defense, and he will have no one else. I experienced the loneliest season of my life when I was defending myself. When I was holding that pain in because it felt good, it was comfortable. But he finishes with this. He says, but let him come defenseless before the Lord, and he will have for his defender no less than God himself. He will have as his defender no less than God himself. So you have a couple choices this next weekend. You can go into next weekend, whatever, you can go into it and you can hold on to the lies and the pain and everything in your life and you say, no, get back. This is mine. This is mine. This is my excuse. This is my justification. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. And at the end, you will have no one for defense but yourself. It isolates us, and it is a lonely and scary place to be in. But the point that and it's vulnerable and it's scary, but the point that we take that, we hold it out or we give it away when we say, you know what? This is not my identity. This is not who I am. You then gain as your protector and your defender the God of the entire universe on your side, who says that you are chosen, who says you are loved. And the Spirit knows that somebody here needs to know that God is saying that I want you. I want you. I'm not putting up with you. It's not just putting up with you. You're not too far gone. I want you. So in my life and my story, honestly, I need some more defense than just myself. And I daily, some days, a lot of days, I fail. But it's a daily choice for me to put on and make sure whatever is that lie is staying off, but to put on who God has called me to be in that day. And to live according to what He has called me to live in, and that is freedom. And I believe a lot of you are going to experience freedom tonight. I think you're going to experience next week. I think you are going to continue to experience freedom throughout the rest of your life. As long as you take down your defenses and you go to the bottom of the boat and you say, Lord, I am drowning, I am dying, I need you. Come calm these storms for me. Because the beauty of that is that the Bible says every single time that we call in the name of the Lord, it says every time that we seek, when we truly seek God, we will find Him. That's what it says in here. So when we seek Him, we'll find Him. And He's ready to help. He's ready to jump up. When you have days, Maybe like today that were just awful. You don't have to wait till the next day to restart. God's ready right now. He's ready in this moment for you to experience freedom. Man, I'm so excited for you guys. And I'd love to pray over you and jump into this last song before we get out of here. And Jesus, thank you for these students. I thank you for their hearts. I thank you for the ways in which they're so excited. The energy in this room is incredible. And we can attribute that to excitement. We can attribute it to camp, but ultimately we attribute you, Jesus, for your graciousness, for your love, and your permission to be excited. You give us permission to be excited, to have fun, to be joyful. You give us also permission to put off the things that are tearing us apart from you, and you're giving us permission to take you on into our spirit, into our hearts, our minds, and our souls, Jesus. So I pray over these students, man, they're awesome. And Jesus, we love you. And just pray for this last time of worship. Jesus, continue to show up. We love you. We pray this in your name.